quite a lot happening in the transportation area to optimise that. If I was, and to address the other question, the one thing that everybody can do to try and start making a difference, and I'll challenge everyone in this room to do it, and that would be to go to the organisers of this event and make sure that next year we have a member of the International Accounting Standards Board here and get them to stand up as to why do we only measure profit. I think that would be the biggest and quickest way to change everything.
There's a concrete recommendation. Peggy, the onus is on you to be even more concrete, if you can.
Sure. So in terms of an example of how JUICE works with businesses, you have to remember businesses want to make money. So yes, they want to do good, but in the end, if you can help them figure out how to make more money and get to the right target market, then they'll want to work with you. So an example of a program that we're investigating right now is factory energy efficiency in export goods in China, which is about 35% of energy use in China. So the problem that we're having on the ground is that these poor Chinese factory workers and managers are being bombarded by all their suppliers who have different requirements for environment and water and for social compliance, etc. And at the same time, they're being bombarded by different government standards from different countries. So if JUICE can sit in the middle and help convene different retailers and convene one single set of expectations, make it easily understandable to the factories, then the factories won't be paralyzed because of the changing expectations. They'll be able to easily make energy efficiency improvements. So that's an example of how you can encourage businesses to work with you if you show them that through the power of collaboration, they can multiply, 1 + 1 is not 2, it's not 3, it's 11, right? So that's one concrete example.
Also, I think given the time, and given the topic about empowerment, these in a sense are kind of closing comments from the panel, in fact. So if you could kind of roll that into your closing comment, answering the question about how Artigraha is leading this empowerment process in Indonesia.
Okay. Thank you, Alex. As I said, and I told the audience before, that before we start the business in Artigraha network, we have to make a research. How is the impact of this kind of business to the public sector, especially for the environment? And if the impact is too negative for the environment, then we have to change the business. And the other point is, we have to let you know that Artigraha network have 4 pillars in the line of business: finance, resources, agriculture, and then the others business is telecommunications, transportation, and so on. And now, besides of our business in Artigraha network, we emphasize our corporate social responsibility, and we make also the foundation, name it Artigraha Peduli, who oftenly active in national disaster, social welfare, to push up the education, and the last is tumbling wildlife nature conservation. That's all. Thank you, Alex.
Thank you very much. Rex, final thoughts from you, please.
I love that question. Thank you for asking it, because it cuts to the guts of why we're all here. And Peggy mentioned a couple of times as well, how important it is and how valid it is for individuals to take action. And success in a movement like the one we're talking about starts with individuals and with small groups, with individual companies, with families. An example from my own company, my company takes its relationship with communities very, very seriously. So the basic principle by which we operate is that if we're successful, if we prosper in an area, then the community has to prosper with us. Otherwise, it's not sustainable business. And just a little example from the Anambas Islands, where we have an operations base. The Anambas Islands, for those of you that don't know, the only real cash crop there is the growing of cloves for cigarettes and a little bit of low value Robusta coffee. But it's a very big area for subsistence fishing. We worked with the subsistence fishermen there to basically what they were doing was cutting the fillets off their fish, selling the fillets to market and throwing the rest away. So there's a lot of waste. We just worked with them, gave them some seed capital and some scientific help. They now convert 100% of the fish that they harvest into usable product. So the fillets still go to market. The fish guts and the bones and so on get ground up, turned into fertiliser. And the fertiliser is used for an organic rice farming business. Rice had never been grown in the Anambas before, ever, in the history of settlement there. That group of farmers are now in there, and they terraced some old clove forest. That group of farmers now in its 6th or 7th harvest, and their yields are 5 times the rice yield in Java. So that's a community that's totally convinced that sustainable agriculture works.
So I'm going to ask you to thank our panelists. I don't think, having listened to that, you feel that the solutions are probably within a group of people like this for most companies in Indonesia and across Asia. This thinking about collaboration, thinking about future generations and grandmothers as well, children and grandmothers we've had on the panel, about consistency, about thinking holistically about your business, about setting ambitious goals, learning from others. These are all parts of the solution. We've had good questions. Sorry we didn't have time for more questions from the audience. There's an opportunity over lunch to grab our distinguished panelists and ask your question to them directly with more time in hand. And I'm sure that we can continue these discussions. Most of the companies are producing interesting reports telling these stories now, and you can read them online, you can read them published, and in the case of some of the companies, you can go and visit their projects as well. So I'm going to ask you to thank the panelists, and we'll move on to the next part of the program. Thank you very much, panelists.
And the organizers.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much indeed, Alex, and thank you very much indeed to the panel. We're now going to move on to the report from the working groups. Alex McGilvray is going to stay on the stage as he has the task of actually reporting back from one of those groups. So I'm just going to invite the rapporteurs from the working groups up onto the stage, and then we will get underway. I think one thing I would say about this session is the rapporteurs are, of course, reporting back on what you have discussed in your working groups. So if you think that they misrepresent what you've said, or you think they haven't entirely said everything that was said, or there's something they've missed, or there's something that occurs to you which you think needs to be mentioned, then when we get to the question and answer session, please do dive right in. Okay. And hopefully this one will work, and it does, gosh. Okay, so just to introduce the panel, to my left we have Claude Fuselier, who's a special advisor on innovation and sustainability. To his left, so to your right, Rod Taylor, who's Forest Director of WWF. Then we have Katerina Tomov from DHL Deutsche Post, Jay Witherspoon from CH2M Hill, and Alex McGilvray, who of course you already know. Perhaps if I could turn first to Claude, who was the rapporteur for the Buildings Working Group. Claude.
Thank you. We had a very interesting session, and actually there were 2 sessions on building yesterday. I listened to the first one, which was moderated by Jay, and then the afternoon session where we were concentrating on living building solutions for quality of living. We first went to a sort of sobering comment made by Constant van Erschot, who is chairing work at the World Business Council for Sustainable Development, where they interviewed 1,400 professionals of the building industry a couple of years ago and asked them about energy efficiency in buildings. And the feedback general was that the professionals of a building industry